George Deely, Vice President of Healthcare Applications at Dimensional Insight. I understand you'd like to learn a little bit more about the Dimensional Insight Healthcare Applications family.
Well, let's take a quick look. So here we're looking at the entire set of applications, and these applications have similar characteristics and functionality. We'll look at hospital operations for an example. So a Dimensional Insight application revolves around a set of measures or KPIs. For hospital operations, this is a subset of the most important measures. We use an example of the average length of stay, a common measure in healthcare, to look at how a measure is packaged up. So the metadata or the descriptive information is actually associated with the computational definition that provides the information that we actually explore. But it's every bit as important because it allows us to understand what the measure represents. We have a narrative description as well as the business logic that tells us how the information was computed, as well as a reference in terms of where we got the basis for the measure. In addition to that, we have a built-in ability to quantitatively analyze the measure, and this is generated from the measure definition directly. We can start it out at a particular level, such as in this case, attending provider, and explore that information further across all of these dimensions or categorical variables, which we call dimensions. In addition to that, we can look at a very detailed and comprehensive view of how the measure was generated from a combination of data elements from various data sets and transformations applied to those data elements to ultimately arrive at this high-level summarized measure. And then finally, each measure has a life cycle that's tied into the data governance process, and we've integrated that directly into our Measure Factory-based applications. And that life cycle starts with governance, the request or the need for a particular measure, typically from stakeholders and end users. And that goes through a process of defining and agreeing on what the measure should be, what it should represent in terms of the specification, what data it should be based on, the transformations that need to be applied to that data. And then once the measure exists, feedback from the validation process to understand, does this measure really reflect what we intended it to reflect? And then once it's fully deployed, a continuous cycle of feedback from the front lines to help continually refine that measure so that it's more and more useful. So once we have these measures and some insight into what they are, what we can do with them, what do we do next? So a big part of that is visualization. So we'll look at a few examples of dashboard templates that these applications provide as a starting point. So we have 3 different styles of dashboard. The similarities among them include the ability to click on any one of these numbers and immediately get down into that next level of detail and analyze it. We'll look at another example. Different presentation, same capabilities, including the ability to look at the metadata that's associated with the measure. And one final example provides a more comprehensive view across an individual measure in terms of both near-term and long-term summarizations as well as trends. And any one of these chart artifacts where we see something might be interesting from a trend, we click on that and again immediately get down to the next level of detail. So there's a variety of different ways to present this information depending on how we want to look at it and understand it. Everything from tables that show a list of measures and the data contextualized by time with the ability to click on an individual cell and further analyze that. The ability to understand trends over time for each of these measures and again explore things at a particular point in time. We can graphically represent certain things around the context of what the measure represents. So in this case, we're looking at readmissions. So we might want to visualize readmissions trends in a variety of different ways. Then we can also explore data in terms of the values of the dimensional or categorical data. In this case, we might want to look at individual physicians and analyze their activity across a variety of different measures, but then also kind of further explore their individual practice patterns or performance using a set of measures that might be appropriate to their particular specialty. Now, one important facet of decision support is quick responsiveness, the ability to use the data in a timely manner in a particular context. So to facilitate that, we provide self-service dashboards that are highly personalized to individual users. So we're literally starting with a blank slate here. And what I can do is choose the measures that I'm most interested in. So starting with the example of our acute length of stay measure, which we used earlier. And we select the measure, we can immediately see the descriptive information to confirm that this is what we actually do want to explore. Then we choose a visualization similar to some of the visualizations we saw earlier. We choose a particular context, and immediately we have that. We might want to choose a few more. Let's say something associated with case mix. And maybe a different perspective, a different visualization might be appropriate for that. And we'll do yet one more for, let's see, maybe our readmissions. So our hospital-wide readmission rate, and we'll choose one more perspective for that, one that makes sense. Now we can rearrange these in a variety of different ways. As we get more measures, we can kind of align them across the screen, and we can continually update this dashboard so that it's relevant to what we're concerned about at a particular point in time, which may change. We can also add filters. Now, once we confirm that this is the dashboard that we want, we can use those filters to subset the data in interesting ways. And once again, these numbers are live. We click on it and we can further explore. Now, if you really want to go deep into the data, there's another option, and that's to use the ProDiver analysis tool to get even deeper into the data. So each measure has what we call a marker associated with it, which allows us to explore the data in a variety of different ways. So we're using the example of the average length of stay measure. We're looking at that first by the principal diagnosis clinical classification. And we've got a few different pieces of information to work with. There's the measure itself, the length of stay, the expected length of stay, the variance between the two, the discharges, which is essentially the denominator for the measure, and then the opportunity, which represents the difference between the observed and expected values. So that helps us to understand where the opportunities may be to drive down length of stay. So if we sort this list of diagnoses by opportunity, we see that septicemia rises to the top. Now, we might want to look at that from a different perspective by, let's say, attending providers, so the physicians who took care of the patients behind these numbers. So from there, we might want to add in a different dimension of data, and we'll use a crosstab to do that. And we'll select another dimension. Let's say we want to understand this by insurance coverage. So we choose the financial class, and then we need to zero in on one of the measures in this list. And it probably makes sense to use the opportunity column. So we choose that, we lock in our crosstab, and now not only can we do the analysis by the overall opportunity by provider, but we can also see some interesting patterns in terms of the different insurance coverage that patients have. So we'll choose one of these physicians that has a particularly high length of stay opportunity, Dr. Chang, and we can see that there are 2 patients or hospital encounters behind that number. So we dive into the next level, and sure enough, there's one outlier here that's driving that opportunity level up. And if we want to understand that in more detail, we can go back to our original view, and see some more information in terms of the actual stay, which was 113 days compared to the expected value of 10, which is driving that opportunity way up. And we can continue to do this analysis across this variety of dimensions, an extensive amount of information that we have to work with for analysis.
So hopefully that brief tour has given you a sense for what's possible with data and how dimensional insight can help you take advantage of the power of information.
So if you'd like to learn more, check out our website, give us a call, or send us an email to talk with myself or one of our many experts in healthcare and analytics.